I'm Steve Maynard. I'm Vice President of Exploration for Minaurum Gold, Inc. And I'm here to talk about the past drilling and what it tells us about future exploration potential at the Alamos Project. If you look here at this display core box, I'm showing sections of five different drill intersections at the Alamos Project. Let me start with Promontorio South. Earlier I was talking about the 2024 drilling at Promontorio, and I mentioned the drilling at Promontorio South and how we expect to be able to define an extension of the Promontorio vein zone, Promontorio Sur or Promontorio South, in that area. Well, okay, hole AL 1920 intersected the fault contact between volcanic rocks and altered limestone in the subsurface. And at that contact, just like we see in the Promontorio zone, we have mineralization in that fault contact, and it included as much as 3 grams of gold. In this particular sample, it was only 4 grams per ton of silver, but in an adjacent sample, which unfortunately I don't show here, did run several hundred grams of silver. So we know that the contact zone is there, it's mineralized, and it leads to, in the footwall of this sample, also not shown here, we see a wide zone of replacement mineralization of a couple of percent combined lead and zinc. So this introduces this other element or other type of mineralization to the potential of the Alamos Project. We intend to follow up on that in the coming drilling program later this year. At Europus is one of the zones in which we are developing a mineral resource here to be published, as I mentioned earlier, in April or May of 2025. This hole AL 2184 was drilled in the lower part farthest to the north at roughly the same elevation as hole 007, which was our best hole from the 2017 program, in which we drilled 8 meters of 1.7 kilos of silver. And notice the upper level vein textures, banded quartz breccias, suggesting a high level intersection now, or a high level of the vein zone. Notice that it's a 25 centimeter interval here, but it paid 770 grams of silver, and the equivalent value was 863 grams per ton silver equivalent. So it includes a little bit of copper, lead, and zinc, and not much gold. The value of this is pretty much straight silver. But most importantly, this tells us that the zone continues to the north. It appears to be at high structural levels with respect to the epithermal system, leading us to believe, leading us to the working hypothesis that there is a great deal more of this silver vein to be found at depth. Hi, Joey. We're recording here. It's okay. No, you're okay. Yeah, nice tie. And so that's Europus, and Europus has considerable potential. We have a lot of enthusiasm about that project, and we intend to follow up with more drilling in the coming year. Now, another hole from Europus is this hole, which is hole 83, was drilled a bit below the previous hole I showed, about 100 meters below. Now, the reason it's cut in this fashion is because we use this for metallurgical purposes. But notice that we still have this kind of the vein mineralization, banded, brecciated, suggesting that we're still at relatively high levels. And notice that this was a sample that ran that was 50 centimeters, that paid 750 grams per ton silver. It had about 4%, 5% combined lead and zinc, and about 0.4% copper. So the silver equivalent value, contained metal value, is a little bit more than 900 grams per ton. So that's obviously a significant intersection. Again, this is giving us this encouragement to continue to drill down dip and along strike on this structure, the Europa structure. We have, I'm estimating, about 500 meters of room to the north on this structure as projected. That has not been explored. It's not been explored with drilling. And that leaves these last two intersections, which are from hole AL 2199, which was drilled at Minas Nuevas in the northern part of the project. This is these separate vein zone. There were two past-producing mines that were developed on that vein zone. We drilled a few holes into that project. Every one of them has hit at least a little bit of mineralization. But hole 99, drilled in 2021, had a and I'll show right here, it had an 8.9 meter interval that with an weighted average grade of 1.2 kilos per ton. Silver equivalent value. Notice that, and these are two of the sample intervals from that zone. Notice that you see a lot of kind of stockwork veining, banded quartz, breccia. This appears that this wasn't the main vein. And in this particular section, you see very little veining. And you might be one might ask oneself, well, what's that about? Here's a little bit more veining in this section. Well, what's that about? What is important about this is that here you had a half a meter that ran 2.2 kilos of silver. Had relatively low values, maybe a total of 1.5% of combined, a little less than 1.5% combined base metals, for a total of 2.3 kilos silver equivalent value. Notice that the gold is very low. It's only 3 parts per billion. So there is quite a lot of silver in this, and in this particular sample, notice that you don't. Where's the veining? That's the question. But again, this one ran 1.35 meter. No. 80 centimeters that ran 1.1 kilos of silver. And when you start to look at this a little bit more closely, you notice that there is these dark areas in here. That's sulfide. There's no quartz veining to go with it, or it's just this very faint stockwork quartz veining. We drilled this hole, that 8.9 meter interval, and then went into workings. So they must have been mining something that was very high grade there to leave this, to ignore this part. We believe that at Minas Nuevas there's a strong possibility that the mines they were shut down during the Mexican Revolution by force, and apparently no one's been back in it since that time. So we believe that there is a significant potential for high-grade mineralization left in the walls of those workings and at depth along their projection. So that's, again, this is something we want to pursue aggressively in the upcoming drilling programs.